Devil, three figures looked at each other. Their projections connecting them across realms so they could work out the last kinks of the plan in their mind. Michael, the host of heaven, broke the silence. Are we certain we are ready for this? Are we prepared for the consequences? Oh, getting cold feet, Michael? Azazel questioned with a smirk, the fallen angel's governor-general showing no signs of hesitation like his peers did. That frightened by the punishment? I have no fear of what may happen to me if we fail, Azazel. Michael countered, what I fear for are the people we'll drag along with us in this venture. Gentlemen, we've made our decision. Seirsex Lucifer, one of the four Mao that led the devils, said, whatever awaits us once this finishes, we must accept. May the Lord have mercy on us. The projections all disappeared and Azazel was left to sit in silence. He stepped forward and leaned his head back to stare at the ceiling. An exhilarating smile taking his face in preparation for what was ahead. Devil, that feels good. Rias moaned into the pillow as she melted into the bed while Naruto's hand roamed and pressed into her body. The beautiful redhead closed her eyes and felt her whole body turn light as his fingers pressed into her muscles. You're getting a lot better at this. Well, I'm getting more and more experience, Naruto said over her, seated with his knees on either side of her as he firmly massaged her back. The lights had been dimmed to give an air of nightly enjoyment as he continued to ease his lover's tension and stress, especially when it sets us up for what's next. Once again Naruto and Rias found themselves alone in the room they had sectioned off as their love cave. They didn't want to risk getting caught when Zenobia and Kaneko regularly came to the bedroom to join their sleeping, so instead they cornered off a room for their own needs and had been using it ever since Azazel had given them their pills. And man, that was a gift that kept on giving. Well, I can tell you're excited. Rias' voluptuous body squirmed under him as his fingers dug into the knot in her shoulders and started to undo it. It's hard not to when I can feel your hardness on my back. Oh, like you're one to talk. Am I just to assume all these moans and writhing around is just for my benefit? I already said you're getting better. Rias turned her head slightly to look up at him, her cheeks slightly red as her eyes softened and she gave him a sultry smile. You keep fishing for compliments and you might make me angry. The kind of angry she was promising was the kind Naruto loved to experience. He reapplied some more lotion to his hands and started rubbing them together as he whispered, you know, most of the club is gonna be gone soon on that field trip to Kyoto. With them gone things are bound to be a lot quieter. We could have a lot of fun while they're away. Ah, they're so lucky. Rias let out a small jealous whine as he started massaging her body again. Every time I hear about the trip I get so anxious and want to go with them. I want to see Kyoto again. She plopped her head back down and pouted. It was just a Kano, Sona, Tsubaki, and I last time we went there. But the second years this time are a group of friends so they'll get to enjoy it more. Man, every time I hear you talk about Kyoto, I get the image of a little kid kicking her legs and demanding they go on a trip. Naruto chuckled. Quite an image you make when you talk like that. The blonde looked down and noticed his girlfriend's stare. What? Did I say something wrong? I'm still just disappointed that you didn't go to Kyoto with our class last year. Why? Because I think you would have had so much fun. How do you even skip a mandatory field trip? Easy, don't show up and have teachers scared of you. But aren't you upset you didn't get to enjoy a trip to Japan's ancestral capital? Not really. I barely even bothered learning anything about Japan and this world's history when I came here. So I didn't really know the importance of what I was missing out. Naruto nonchalantly shrugged. I was still coping with being in a new world with people I didn't know and no connection to who I was. Even if I did bother going, I'm sure I would have been a pill. Still, hey, if you're so bent up about it we can go to Kyoto some other time. Since you seem so keen you can show me around or something. How about that? Naruto smiled and massaged her further as Rias hid her conflicted expression in her pillow. Before he could go any further, he heard the ring of his phone by his side. Carefully maneuvering the phone around so he didn't muck up the screen, Naruto checked the message. Huh? What is it? Some mass text from Azazel to the club. What about? It says that we all need to get our best sports gear on and prepare for a game day tomorrow. Naruto blinked. What the fuck? That's so stupid. Why would we even bother with that? Is he joking? The phone rang again and he looked down. I'm not joking. Holy shit. Azazel, can you see us right now? The young couple looked around suspiciously and tried to see if there was any way the Governor-General could have been watching them. Rias frowned and sat up. He better have a good reason for texting us this. Devil, we're having a unified sports day. It's not. Rias dryly stated, it's not a good reason. Oh, wipe that scowl off your face, kid. Azazel blithely waved off her annoyance as he smirked and faced the members of the club dressed in their Gremory tracksuits. Today, we're going to the underworld to participate in a sport day event between the three factions. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Is this real? Issei asked. This seems like it's gonna turn into a prank against us. Issei-senpai is right. This feels like we're going to go all the way there dressed like this. Expect to play in some games, but just get played when we arrive. Kaneko said with a small glare at Azazel. Sensei, there's teasing and then there's just being a dick. I feel like he keeps overshooting the teasing part and lands firmly in the being a dick area all the time. There was a wave of mumbling and agreements from all the students and teacher present. Azazel nodded. Well, glad to see I have so much faith being put in me. Come on, he ushered them over to the magic circle. It's time to go. I seriously think he's just planking us. Devil. Fireworks exploded in the sky as cheers of celebration and joy sounded out across the field. A stadium usually reserved for raiding games was now filled with sports equipment, event areas, and people. Devils, angels, and fallen angels filled the entire place as even the sky above them was littered with white, black, and crooked bat wings. The orc stood dumbstruck as they looked around. Holy fuck, it was real. Rias. Everyone. You're here. Sirzex spotted the group of youngsters accompanying the Governor-General with his arrival. Instead of the regal armor the redhead usually adorned or the spiffy professional suit he wore when he relaxed, the Mao was dressed in a tracksuit. Unlike the air of control or authority Sirzex usually had when in public, the older man seemed downright giddy and excited for the day of games. He ran up and smiled while stretching his arms. We've been waiting for you all to arrive. Are you excited for today? Oni-sama. Rias tested whether this was a situation where she could refer to her brother as such or by his professional moniker. Judging by the smile on his face, it didn't look like he minded. Is this real? Why would we suddenly be having a sports day like this? Well, it was just a fun little idea. Me and the other leaders had to strengthen relationships between the factions. A little healthy competition to liven things up. Sirzex said with a convincing smile before it took on a challenging, sharper edge. Hey there, Azazel. Hey Sirzex. Azazel answered with the same level of menace in his voice as the devil. You really feeling excited? Sure that isn't just nerves? I'm not worried. After all, we won't be the ones who have to suffer with losing. Oh, is that the patented devil's pride I hear in your voice? You better watch out, Sirzex. Azazel smirked. You might trip up before you know it and have to suffer the fall. I'm honestly surprised everyone made it here with you. Azazel. Sirzex walked past him and looked over the students. I half expected for them to conveniently disappear and be unable to join in the games today. Seems like something that would just coincidentally happen when you were around. Why, I have no idea what you're talking about. Azazel feigned innocence and fluttered his eyelashes. These are my precious students. I just wanted to make sure they got here safely and comfortable. Awake on time. Properly dressed, and fed, of course. Did you eat what he gave you? Sirzex quickly turned to Rias and grabbed her shoulders, anxiously looking her over for something as Rias sputtered and tried to make him stop. He let her go and looked over the others. Was it smoking? Was it bubbling? Did anything you eat have a discoloring on it? He finally landed on Naruto and reached for his mouth. You need to purge this instant. Hey, what are you? The blonde reached up and grabbed his wrists, holding the older red-haired man back as he tried to force his fingers into his mouth. Stop it, get out of. Sirzex, get your fucking fingers out of my mouth. Of course they already ate breakfast before we left for the underworld, so they're fine. Azazel cheekily noted as Sirzex pulled his hands back and glared at the fallen angel spitefully. The mixed-haired man laughed and waved them off. Well, I need to go check with my team. I'll see you all later. Bastard. Tricking me like that. Sirzex cursed before looking the younger group over, but seriously, he didn't try to feed you any food or drink, right? You're not feeling sluggish or lethargic or anything that might be detrimental to our victory today, right? Oni-sama. Rias addressed her brother, but by the clear tone in her voice she wasn't amused or willing to play games. What is going on? We're having a sports day with the other factions for fun and healthy competition. And the leaders of the losing teams had to embarrass themselves in front of everyone. There it is. The orc sighed in disappointment. So what exactly do you have to do if you lose? I'm not sure. The winner gets to decide the punishment. Azazel is one sick, twisted man with a vivid imagination, so I'd hate to see what he'd have in store for me. The Maud tilted his head. As for Michael. Michael Sama would never do something to hurt or humiliate you, Lucifer Sama. Yeah, Michael Sama is the host of heaven. He has no malicious intent in his heart. That's right. The church trio were quick to stand up in the Archangel's defense, but the Mao shrugged. I mean, it'd be pretty foolish to count Michael out just like that. So I'd feel a lot safer if I won. Let me guess. Because you'd be the kind and magnanimous winner if you were the one in charge? Naruto said sarcastically. That's right. Sirzex earnestly agreed and pointed back the way he came. I had to go rally the others. Come join us soon because the games will be starting up. Sirzex ran over to the devil section and left the orc where they stood. The group looked around at all the gathered people and realized the horrible truth. Today was going to be a long day, devil. The orc made their way by the angel faction. The team from heaven was filled with gentle, approachable people with white shorts and bloomers on, as well as beautiful white wings adorning their backs. The other members of the orc were surprised to see so many angels in one place for the first time, while one immediately broke from the group and ran in. Michael Sama. Irina called out to her, King, as she ran up, I'm so sorry I'm late. It's quite alright, Irina. You haven't missed anything yet. I'm just sorry I sent you the message so late last night and didn't give you more time to prepare. The youthful-looking archangel accepted his young follower's apology and then turned to the others with a smile. Hello again everyone. I'm glad to see you all again, and with some new faces as well. Everyone greeted the leader of the angels politely, while Asia and Zenobia stepped forward to give the man their personal regard. Michael Sama, it's so gold to see you again. As it is you, my children. I'm glad to see you both are doing so well with your new family. And Irina is constantly telling me how much fun she has with all of you in school. The twin-tailed girl blushed as the former nun and warrior giggled. I hope you're all ready for the games today. Oh yes, Michael Sama, Asia excitedly answered. We had our school's sports festival not too long ago, so our training is fresh in the mind. We should be showing our concern for you, Michael Sama. Zenobia said with a small challenging smile. I hope the angels of heaven are ready to face the skills we're ready to show. Oh, Zenobia, is that pride I hear in your voice? The blue-haired knight squeaked in fright and surprised everyone close with the unexpected sound. She turned around and started sweating and growing pale when she saw the person behind her. A lovely woman with soft, gentle features and a kind smile had walked up and stopped behind Zenobia. She was wearing the white shirt and white bloomers of her team but also still had her nun's habit over her head. The sweet and approachable aura around her body immediately disarmed everyone who saw her. Which was why it was confusing to see Zenobia shudder and nervously look around when faced with the woman. Hello. Zenobia, it's so good to see you again. The older woman spoke softly and stepped forward, making Zenobia shiver and reflexively take a step back. We haven't spoken in so long. I was worried you might have been avoiding me or had forgotten I existed. And no, Zenobia said unconvincingly, her eyes shooting around to look at anything other than the woman in front of her. I was just so preoccupied that I never got the chance. The others watched the scene oddly as Naruto leaned in towards Akano. I didn't know Zenobia could be nervous. Do you think it's someone she knows? Before they could theorize further, the woman's hands blurred up and grabbed Zenovia's cheeks. The blue-haired devil slowly looked forward and was met with the woman's sweet smile covered by a threatening miasma she knew too well. Now I don't remember raising you to not look people in the eyes when they talk to you. And I also don't remember teaching you to ghost or ignore people, now did I? And no, Sister Griselda. Zenobia muttered, sorry, Sister Griselda. Now can you introduce me to your friends? Oh of course. Grista released her hold on Zenovia's cheeks and let her walk over to her club. Sister Griselda, these are the members of Rias Gremory Sama's peerage of which I am proudly appointed the knight. She turned. Everyone, this is Sister Griselda Quarta, my swordmaster and teacher of the exercising arts. Griselda reached over and pulled her ear. Ow, ow. and my guardian when I was with the church. That's better. Griselda released her ear and bowed her head to the devils. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Ooh, that explains it. Sister Griselda, several other people made their way over when they heard Zenobia cry out earlier. Is something the matter? Oh, nothing at all, the former exorcist said as she gently pinched Zenovia's cheek and pulled it as the night whined. Just reconnecting with my little sister. And getting introduced to the special young team that's making news wherever they go. Oh man. That means you're Issei Hyodo-kun, right? A handsome blonde man around their age ran up and grabbed Issei's hand before shaking it. You're the Oppai Dragon. I've seen your show. It's so much fun. The kids and I love watching every new episode that comes out. And that means you're the Gremory peerage that defeated Shalba Beelzebub and God Loki. It's such an honor to meet you all. He smiled towards everyone. My name is Dulio Gesualdo. I can't wait to compete against you all today. I've heard of you. Ria's amazement filled her voice as she looked at the older man. You're Joker, aren't you? The legendary warrior of the church with the power of one of the strongest Longinus in existence, right? Dulio chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head. That's true. But you don't have to worry about me trying to show off or make any big scenes or anything. I just want to have fun today. Dulio, Michael stepped up and patted the younger angel's shoulder. I understand your hesitance, but we are competing today for the glory of heaven. So whatever you have to do and whatever action is necessary, we must take it for the good of our friends and comrades. The innocent new angel titled his head. Oh, really? Azazel and Sirzex aren't the only ones raring to win. Naruto whispered and got a chorus of agreeable hums in return. Before he could inquire what Michael would do if he was in charge of punishments, his eyes landed on the last individual to join their conversation. What is? What? Oh, I've actually been waiting for a chance to introduce you to. Michael walked over to his fellow angel, Naruto-kun. This is my comrade Metatron. He's a seraph, just like myself and the other archangels. Metatron, this is Naruto Uzumaki-kun. He's the boy that came here from the world of ninjas that I told you about. It's an honor to meet you, Uzumaki Dono. The older, taller angel placed his fist against his palm and bowed his head. The seraph had chosen a different attire to everyone else present today. He was dressed in a white shinobi shozoku, the ancient garb of ninja around the world. Half of his face was hidden behind his face mask, while the rest of his outfit matched perfectly with the traditional ninjas all the way down to his tabi socks and boots. Metatron nodded. I had hoped when Michael told me about you that we could speak and I could learn more about your world. Naruto was shocked and confused by what he was seeing. The others. Whoa, it's a ninja. The other members of the orc ran past him and up to the white-clad ninja. It's a real ninja. Look at him. Oh, this is so cool. I've always wanted to meet a ninja like this. Rias was bouncing on her feet with excitement as she looked up at Metatron with sparkles in her eyes. Can you show us some ninja techniques? Oh, or do you have any kunai or shuriken you can throw? Hey. The teens looked back and found Naruto glaring at them and shrugging his shoulders in disbelief. They all cocked their heads to the side before the whiskered blonde groaned. I'm a ninja. They looked between their close friend and the shozoku wearing angel several times before Issei spoke. Hey senpai, why don't you ever wear anything like this? What? I mean you're always in your uniform or the tracksuit or just casual clothes. Haven't you ever worn one of these things before? No, why not? Because that's not what ninjas wear. What did they wear, Naruto-san? Yuto asked before quirking his eyebrow. Wait, did you do your missions in the orange and black clothes you wear when you use Golden Revival? Yes. The whiskered man indignantly exclaimed. We wear what we wanted to and what we could move most easily in. Wearing costumes like this is just stereotypical. No ninja would actually wear it. But my ninja master said this was the traditional garb worn by shinobi? You have an actual master? Of course. Metatron nodded. Otherwise I'd just be a cosplaying weirdo. Naruto-san, I think your world might just be the exception to the rule and not the standard. This pretty much looks like the standard ninja to us. Yep. I agree. Totally. This is definitely what ninjas look like when I think of them. Even Dulio piped up to agree. Naruto could only open and close his mouth in shock as he failed to bring a voice to his complaints. Silently he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and exhaled. I'm gonna walk away before this makes me any angrier. Naruto did just that and made his way away from the angel section, saying goodbye to Michael and Griselda along the way. The orc looked between each other with a tinge of guilt. Ah, Metatron deflated. I really wanted to talk to him about ninja stuff. Devil. What a pain in the ass. Naruto grumbled. I don't know why we didn't wear those things. Why would they ask me why we didn't wear those things? I have no idea. It is pretty curious though, right? Their ninja culture kind of stalled in one place while the one back home evolved and thrived. Well, ninjas seem like a rarity here that stopped a few hundred years back. I guess exaggerated, old views are all they have of them. Naruto tilted his head. Hey Kurama, what did ninja used to wear in the old days? Peefed, I don't know. How do you not know? You're hundreds of years old. Do you think I spent even a fraction of a second recognizing what humans wore? It's cloth? That's it? Man, I expected more from you. What, can't you be a little more attentive to your surroundings? I could have really used your help back there? Oh, like you have any right to criticize me being attentive. What does that mean? Look around. Naruto lifted his head and looked at his surroundings. Thick, voluptuous bottoms barely contained by black bloomers. Large, bountiful breasts rocking up and down with every movement they took. Sexy women moaning seductively as they stretched and loosened their bodies against each other. Naruto took a deep breath and turned his red face away. Oh crap, I wandered into the fallen angel section. Ha! Who's inattentive now, bitch? Hey there, handsome. Naruto flinched as a mature, sultry voice whispered huskily into his ear. He jumped forward and turned around to find several gorgeous, supermodel-level women looking at him. With how developed their bodies were and how tight their workout attire was, Naruto wasn't sure where he should look. Welcome to the fun side. Hi there. Naruto waved without actually looking at the women. Sorry about that. Wandered in. I'll be on my. Hey, don't leave soon. One of the other women whispered as she reached out and grabbed his arm before he could get away. Talk with us. We were about to do some more stretches. One said while gently touching her bottom lip, would you like to watch us? We're really flexible. I don't. That's it, girls. Naruto perked up and looked over to see Azazel nodding happily. Distract him. Get the blood flowing. Whatever you can do to get him off his game. Oh fuck you. You smarmy bastard. Get away from him. Rias suddenly rushed in, waving her arms and getting the busty fallen angel women to give her boyfriend a wide berth of space. No hussies allowed within 10 feet of him. As the rest of the orc came running to their side, she turned and looked up at her boyfriend with a mix of emotions on her face. What happened? Rias, I'm so glad you're here. Naruto hid his face in Rias' neck as he hugged her. I was so confused and I didn't know what was going to happen, and it's all Azazel's fault. The Governor General clicked his teeth as Rias glared at him and stroked Naruto's hair. Damn, should have been faster on the attack. What other strategy could we use? He looked over the club and pointed. Girls, same thing but with the brunette. Hey handsome. Yes. Issei immediately answered. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Whatever you're going to say, it's a big fat yes from. Ow. He screamed and rubbed his butt after Asia had pinched it. Okay, I'm sorry. They're just so beautiful and sexy. And their breasts. They're so big. Ow. Sorry. Azazel, are you seriously messing with these kids again? Several men in white shirts and black shorts came to join when they saw the commotion going on. Barakiel towered over everyone present and looked down at the women. Ladies, sorry for troubling you, but you can go now. Okay. Barakiel-sama. Azazel's skanky horde quickly ran off, much to Naruto's relief and Issei's chagrin. The mixed-haired man looked up at his old friend in disappointment as Barakiel easily ignored his indignation and greeted everyone. Hello again everyone. He smiled a little more warmly. I like your new haircut. Whatever. Akeno mumbled with an embarrassed hue on her cheeks. Just did it because I felt like it. Barakiel chuckled to himself as Shemazai and Tobio laughed as well. The Vice-Governor General shook his head before looking over at Azazel. Were you seriously going to try and seduce one of the kids from the other side just to get an advantage? Azazel scratched his cheek. Maybe. That's disgusting. Tobio shook his head. Don't you have any shame? Sorry, the college student hung his head. I don't know why I thought that would mean anything to him. Well, we'd love to stay and chat, but your leader is a scumbag who might try to poison or trick us just to win. Rias said with contempt as she made sure to put her body in front of Naruto protectively. So we're going to leave. Come along everyone. The orc followed their king away. Akano stumbled as her collar was snagged and pulled back. The black-haired girl untangled herself from Azazel's grasp and glared at the man. What the hell are you doing? I should be asking you that. Why are you walking away when you should be getting ready with us? Their teacher and advisor smiled down at the hybrid. I mean you're part of the fallen angel team, right? What? Akano gasped and shook her head as her friends joined behind her. No. But you're part fallen angel. She's also a devil, Rias piped up by her best friend's side, and she's been my queen for years now. But we've got family ties on this side. Azazel reached over and threw an arm over Tobio's shoulder. Ain't that right / dog? The Longinus wielder sighed. Can you not be a dick? Akano-san is our family too. The club let out a resounding cry of agreement that made the queen start to blush from the attention she was getting. But we also have her father. Azazel pointed at Barakiel, her sad, lonely, upset single father who just wants to spend time with his daughter again. Azazel, the fallen angel Grigori leader, berated his friend. Don't try to play at their feelings like that. The governor-general frowned and looked away in frustrated defeat. Barakiel looked down at his daughter. It's okay Akano. Even if we might be against each other in these games, that won't matter. The bearded father smiled. I'm just glad to see you have fun. Grr. Akano groaned through her teeth before she stomped forward and joined the fallen angel men. Damn it. Rias gaped in shock. Akano? Well, how can I say no when he talks like that? The black-haired girl groused, her face red from a mix of embarrassment and anger. She turned to her father. Don't say anything else. All right? Got it? She quickly whirled on Azazel and growled, and don't you say another fucking word. The mixed-haired man's mouth was about to open before she told him that. Now he slowly shut his mouth and dragged his fingers over his lips in order to zip them up. But his joy was clearly evident on his face, and his expression only worked to irritate everyone who saw it. Damn it all. Devil, we're finished. Naruto, Issei, and Yuto looked back in time to see their female companions come back out dressed in their sportswear. Zenobia slipped a finger into her bloomers and tried to readjust it against her backside. These things are pretty snug, right? Well, they're supposed to be so nothing slips while we move around. Asia looked her red bloomers over before looking at the boys. Right, Issei-san? That's right, Issei nodded, and you all look so great wearing your sports clothes, and Gasper. They all looked at the Domphir. Seriously dude, just why? I don't like how airy the shorts are while I'm running. The meek, nervous little bishop answered. I prefer the bloomers honestly. Is that weird? Oh, it's pretty on brand to your usual level of weirdness, buddy. Naruto reassured his junior as Gasper smiled with relief. At this point it was more of a hassle trying to point out the oddities in his friend's behavior than to just accept them and move on. Instead he looked around. Hey, have you noticed people are looking at us? Of course they are. Yuto nodded. They recognize us from the show. Hey, it's Opie Dragon. Rias-sama looks just as pretty as she does as Breast Princess. Man, Hellcat-chan is so fucking adorable. Wow, Lazy Sage looks a lot less lethargic in real life. As the others realized the attention they were getting, Yuto smiled. I guess even here we have fans who love the show. I hope we can meet their expectations. Oh, it's Darkness Knight Fang. He's even cuter in real life. Do you think he's as dark and demanding as he is in the show? Ooh, I bet he's forceful and commanding. Fuck, what I wouldn't do to get yelled at by him. Yuto blinked a few times in surprise at the whispers he was hearing. He looked over at Issei and Naruto to see his two male friends giving him envious glares. He chuckled, I'm sure whatever they're talking about is age appropriate. Oh, you know it's not. It sounds like being on a show is fun, Asia said before she looked over at Zenobia, Rossweiss, and Gasper. Do you think if we asked Azazel Sensei and Lucifer-sama, they'd be willing to make characters of us to play with too? Gasper paled at the thought. I don't want that, people would be staring at me and watching me and judging me. I can't take that. I suppose it would be fun. Zenobia mused, but honestly I could go either way. It's more fun to watch everyone get called out and named than it would be to get the same treatment. I agree. Rossweiss nodded. I'm not sure any character based on me would be very fun for a kids show. Plus I don't think I can handle appearances and acting for it that well. But Roswise-san, you'd be getting royalty payments for your likeness. I would? The Valkyrie's position took an immediate 180 at the mention of money before she looked at the others. Do you all get paid for your characters' appearances? Yep. That's right. If there's any consolation to being on that show, it's the pay. The silver-haired Rook quivered and shook with excitement. I have to get on that show. I need that disposable income. Before Roswise could get any more excited, Ria's hand fell on her shoulder and brought her back to reality. Watch yourself, Roswise. It might seem tempting, but you will be selling your soul to a monster. The crimson-haired king shrugged. And sure, they'll lure you in with promises of it being for the good of the children of the underworld and for their development. But soon enough you'll see dolls and figures and hug pillows and mouse pads all about your tits. And you'll get bombarded with questions about what kind of bras you wear and if you do any preparations to get your boobs to look bigger and how you feel knowing that you might be the source for an entire generation's sexual awakening. And she closed her eyes, finding several people patting her back sympathetically. Trust me, it's a lot. Everyone. The heavy atmosphere around them was blown away when Sirzex came running over while Grafia carefully followed up behind him. Glad to see you're all ready. I see we're missing a few people now. Irina-san joined the Angel team while Akano got coerced to join the Fallen Angel team. Rias informed before shaking her head, Onisama. I know you brought some people along from the other factions to enjoy the sports day we had at the academy, but I didn't think you'd go so far as to recreate it for this. Well, I keep saying how fun it is watching those recreational games, Rias. We just thought everyone else could have fun doing the same. Speaking of which, Grafia held out a pamphlet for Sirzex to take before he handed it over. Here is a list of the games we'll be playing today. You should all choose which ones you'd like to participate in. Rias held it up to read as her peerage leaned in beside her to get a look as well. Many of the activities were standard for a sport festival. A cavalry battle, obstacle course, ball tossing game, relay race. But some were more. Karaoke, water jousting. Yeah, when I suggested we have a sports festival, then I offered the usual games and stuff. But then other devils had suggestions, and then the angels and fallen angels threw their hats in as well. And so on and so forth until things got kinda wild. Sirzex chuckled. You should be glad we ignored some things from the recommendations. This is the tame version? Exactly, Lucifer-sama. Grafia addressed her husband. It's time for the public address. Oh, thanks Grafia. Sirzex waved them off. I'll see you all out there. As they watched the Mao leave and looked back down at the games expected for them to participate in, Kaneko summed up what they were feeling. Anyone else feeling a growing sense of dread? Devil, okay everyone. Let's make sure to have fun today. I know there might still be some underlying tension and animosity among us. But that's natural, nothing wrong with that. Just fight, win, and if some stuff gets blown up or people get knocked around in the process, well, that's life. YEEHHHH. The Fallen Angel team roared and cheered with glee at Azazel's poorly veiled speech. The black-clad leader stepped aside and let Michael take his spot at the front of the stage. The golden-haired angel smiled out to everyone. Ah, the Fallen Angels sure are riled up, aren't they? Well, we should let them and the devils celebrate while they can, because I promise we'll be the ones victorious at the end of the day. Michael continued to smile even as his expression became darker. After all, we are blessed with divine strength, are we not? Of course, Michael-sama. The archangel bowed his head and made way for Sirzex. The Mao cleared his throat and stood up a little taller before approaching the mic. He took a deep breath. Let's fucking win. YEEHHHHH. Yep. Kaneko nodded. I was right about that feeling of dread. Devil, first off, can the participants of the obstacle course please come up? That's me. Issei pumped his arm and ran forward before waving back. Wish me luck. Good luck, Issei-kun. You can do it, Issei-san. Issei-senpai, try not to get distracted. Hyodo-kun might have the advantage in this match. Sona, Tsubaki, and the rest of the Stuko stood beside the ORC's members as they watched the participants gather for the first game. He's been training a lot lately and his boosted gear should help him take an immediate win if he wants to. Yes, this should be easy. Rias nodded with a frown, which doesn't explain this unease I'm feeling. What, that this is all just a little too simple? You feel it too? Of course. I know who we're working with. On your marks. Get set. Go. As the participants started running the course, Rias asked her oldest friend, so what do you think? Maybe some kind of strategy to overtake the other teams? A tactic to exploit a devil's weaknesses to light or holy water? Maybe? A giant explosion occurred on the obstacle course as a Cerberus emerged from underground and lunged at the participants. Issei slid to a stop and screamed in horror as he dodged aside and let an angel get snatched up in its jaws instead. Or we'll just ditch all pretense of subterfuge and throw a giant goddamn monster into the race. Quickly following after the three-headed mutt, a giant bird and a scaly serpent emerged from the ground to wreak havoc. The bird flew down and grabbed a devil before taking off. And the snake wrapped around a fallen angel woman and squeezed her. And no, stop it. You're tearing my clothes up. Issei, Rias called out through the cheers and jeers of the crowd as she tried to reach her pawns' ears. Run. While you still can. You have to finish the obstacle course to end The ground shook as a giant dragon landed and cracked the pavement beneath him. Tannen stood at full height, towering over Issei's small cowering body as he paled in horror at his mentor's sudden arrival. The Dragon King smirked as fire filled his mouth. NNNO. The screams and cries of the participants rang out through the field as they were besieged by the traps and monsters that stood in their way. And everyone watching got an idea of what was in store for them next. Devil, I am up next. Gasper fixed his bag over his head and nodded. Wish me luck everyone. Gasper, wait, Naruto called out and got down on one knee in front of his little vampire friend. He reached up and tore a small tear in the bag around the young devil's mouth. Learn from prior mistakes. Now you can at least try to eat the donuts. Thanks senpai. Gasper thanked Naruto before running out to join the line with the other participants. The little Dampier excitedly bounced on his feet, ready to show everyone his skill for this event and make his friends proud. The announcement rang out and he rushed down the field. With the donuts hanging in sight, he jumped up to bite them. A powerful electric shock traveled through his entire body the moment he took a bite. The vampire dropped to the ground, convulsing in a heap as a shock traveled through his system every few seconds. The orc palmed their faces. Devil. Next was the relay race. Half a dozen people from each team were selected to pass a baton down the line to the next runner and race around a giant track. Several orc members were picked from the devil side to participate. Their lineup was filled with capable, speedy runners with excellent teamwork. And the other teams utilized their greatest weakness to their advantage. No! Rossweiss cried out from the starting line as the tentacle that ensnared her and stopped her from running coiled around her limbs and wrapped around her chest. I can't take this. I'll never be able to marry. Oh man, Issei panted as he watched his teammates' breasts get pushed up and giggle around with every movement. Rossweiss-san's fantastic breasts are being pushed up for all to see. It's so sexy I can't even look away, but when I do. The perverted devil looked around the field and saw Irina, Akano, Griselda, Gabriel, and all the female fallen angels and angels bounce around haphazardly while they jogged. For a boy that dreamed of having a harem and adored breasts, this was a nirvana he could never forsake. Issei, Naruto roared from the next stop in the relay. Fucking help Rosswiesse already and pass the baton. I can't senpai. This is all just so beautiful that I can't give up this chance. Oh great going, fuckface, devil. Everyone was confused when they saw the karaoke game set on the pamphlet. They had simply waved it off as a simple suggestion from the angels to have some fun without much physical activity. In hindsight, it should have been obvious they were prepared for this. Hello world. Here's a song that we're singin', come on, get happy. A whole lotta lovin' is what we'll be bringin', come on, get happy. All of the angels in attendance sung in choir on the stage. Gabriel and Irina slid to the front of the stage with mics in hand. We had a dream we'd go travelin' together, and spread a little lovin' if we'll keep movin' on. Somethin' always happens whenever we're together, we get a happy feelin' when we're signin' a song. Despite the different factions, no one could stop cheering for the angels as they riled up the crowd. The leaders all stood together a few meters back as Michael smugly nodded. I knew he picked the right song. The devil and fallen angel leaders groaned and conceded the point to him. Devil, water jousting was probably the most peculiar-sounding activity on the roster. As it was explained to them, it was a female-only game where women would dress in swimwear and knock each other off a course floating over a swimming pool. And the kicker was that no abilities or powers could be used. Opponents could only be pushed off with attacks from the hips, butt, or chest. It seemed ridiculous in concept. In practice, goo, knock 'em off. Ha! Zenobia rushed in and jumped, twisting in the air and slamming her hips against a fallen angel's temple. They spun off the platform and splashed into the pool below as the knight landed and wiped her cheek. Geez. I thought this would be just a game, but this is a lot more trying and demanding than expected. This is actually a good way to get a workout in. Zenobia, the blue-haired swordswoman, turned and swung the side of her hip out to meet Irina in kind. The two warriors struggled against each other as the chestnut-haired girl smiled. I've always wanted to settle who is stronger between the two of us. A challenge? Zenobia smirked as she pushed her hip harder against the aces. Well, I'm happy to oblige. Across the field, two powerful forces rushed towards each other. Two pairs of boobs collided like missiles as they pushed against each other. Give in, Rias. Akeno strained as she pushed back against her best friend's chest. You know I've always had the bigger pair. Bigger doesn't mean better, Rias yelled and pushed forward, forcing Akeno back as the redhead gave chase. Get over here, Akeno. Naruto cheered from the sidelines. Come on, Rias, show them what you got. Let them know those babies aren't just for show. This is the best sport ever. And as rivalries flared and participants clashed, one force blazed through the field like a wave of destruction. Graphia slid to a stop, her assets giggling in her bikini as she surveyed the area and tried to locate her next target. Her eyes locked in on Gabriel, the archangel's body covered in a wetsuit to hide her form, but the attire still clinging to her curves enough to stir on the crowd. The queen took a step forward and rushed in to meet her next foe. Michael shook his head. I don't know if this was necessary. Azazel clicked his tongue as his phone recorded everything. It probably wasn't, but I have to admit that this is the most beautiful thing I've seen in my entire life. Sirzek sighed contentedly. Oh yes, she's definitely going to be on top tonight. Devil, so Azazel, what was the point of this public speaking activity? I thought it would be a good chance for a representative from each side to speak up and connect with the crowd. Okay, but what's the real reason? Don't you guys trust? No, never. I should be upset, but I'm actually kinda happy I still get that kind of reaction. Sona had come up in front of everyone and read a powerful monologue from a book she loved that grabbed the attention of everyone. Dulio was elected by the angels to come up and speak about peace and offering a hand when possible. And now finally for the fallen angels. Akeno was forcibly pushed on stage despite her reluctance to do so. The young woman frowned in annoyance and looked down at the book pages marked down for her to read. She gave a heavy sigh before stepping up to the mic. I will be reading an excerpt from a book. The sarcastic quotation marks could be felt through her voice, supplied to me by someone close. Don't forget to mention it can be bought in stores now. Screw you, Akeno screamed out at Azazel before clearing her throat and opening to a page. The Duke got down on one knee, looking up at the seductress that had tormented, humiliated, and trained him over the course of months. Once upon a time he was filled with a sickening, white-hot rage that erupted just at the sight of her. But now she had given him back his life and nobility, and made him experience pleasure on a new level he'd never felt before. Deciding to return the favor, he reached up for her underwear and moved it aside before digging. It was chaos. Akeno's seductive and sultry tones lent themselves perfectly to the subject matter in her hand. The tone she took and the expressive way she read reached everyone who was listening. The only one unaffected by the reading was Barakiel, whose higher brain functions shut down when he realized what it was he let his daughter read in front of everyone. The crowd gave an immediate reaction. Breathing got heavier and people shuffled in place uncomfortably. As Akeno got more and more descriptive about what the Duke and the seductress did together to reach pleasure, the reaction became more pronounced. Faces got redder as legs crossed over each other to hide any shame. And when Akeno saw the reaction her reading was getting, her sadistic side reveled in it and she got even more excited. The poor angels were nearly doomed. Wings flickered from white to black dozens of times as the innocent lot of heaven's residents struggled to stay pure and keep their desires pushed down. They all doubled over, covering their crotches and muttering a prayer to stay strong. It was pandemonium. But Azazel's book did get a lot of new orders when the day was over. Devil! This was a mistake. We should never have come here. Naruto groaned as he stood at the starting line for the last activity of the day. His body was bruised and aching after an entire day of getting knocked around and beaten by the traps and foul play shown during the games. Dozens of games and activities, hundreds of casualties. Poor Asia nearly worked herself to exhaustion trying to fix everybody up. And now with all of their scores tied, this last three-legged race would be the deciding factor for the victory. The whiskered blonde sighed and scratched his head as he looked out over the field he would be running. Man, I know they fucked with this somehow. That's funny, Azazel suggested the same thing. The young devil looked back and saw Tobio and Dulio joining him out on the field to represent their teams. The soul human looked ahead. He thought there would be more traps for us, so he suggested we should put down ours first before anyone else got the chance. Michael-sama assured me that there aren't any hidden traps here that could catch us, Dulio said before the taller man scratched his cheek. I mean, after the display we've seen over the last few hours, I don't want to say I'm skeptical, but I'll think it really loud. We got dragged into those psychos' insanity, didn't we? Naruto pondered while the other two guys couldn't help but agree. He turned to Tobio, aren't you human still? How did you get roped into this? They didn't have as many numbers to spare, so they asked me and some friends of mine to join in. Devils and angels have ways to create new members of their race, but fallen angels still have to rely on the old method for now. And I think we'd probably like to avoid that way of doing things for the time being. Tobio paused and grimaced. I mean, I thought they would, but that was a pretty close call earlier. It was terrifying. Dulio muttered with his gaze stretching much farther than it should be. Gabriel-sama had to cover my ears so I didn't hear anything. And I just had to watch as everyone around me writhed around with flickering wings and clutching themselves. Was Irina okay during all of that? I saw her fall to her knees and try to catch her breath, so the whole thing must have been a big struggle. Dulio shook his head. I think the hardest part was hearing that so many of the angels wanted to see how that book ends, but Michael-sama forbade them from purchasing it because he didn't want to deal with a mass falling. We should have argued against this sports day while we had the chance. This whole damn thing has just devolved into pandemonium. You know what the worst part is? Tobio spoke up, getting their attention as the college student frowned. They'll be settling this war grudge with a three-legged race for supremacy. Naruto and Dulio titled their heads before Tobio finished. We're literally helping them with a race war. When you say it like that, that's disheartening. That really kills the mood. Naruto-kun. The whiskered blonde was pulled back by Sirzek's sudden appearance as he separated his partner from his opponents. You can't fraternize with the enemy. They'll try to implant terrible ideas into your head and take you off guard. Naruto deadpanned. It's a three-legged race, Sirzek. Please remember that. Is everyone ready for the final event of the evening? A three-legged race between our leaders and a representative of their choice. The first team to reach the end will break the tie and claim victory for their team. Why did you pick me? Naruto asked as Sirzek tied their ankles together. Issei has a Longinus to match these guys, and he was the one who trained for the three-legged race recently. Wouldn't it make more sense to get him out here with you? It's true that Issei-kun has a Longinus, but just having a sacred gear like that doesn't automatically make him the best choice. Sirzek finished tying them together and stood back up by his side. Besides, you and I need to get along better considering we'll be brothers one day. That little admission from Sirzek surprised Naruto more than he was expecting. His cheeks started to heat up and he wasn't sure if it was from embarrassment or flattery. Did Sirzek really already consider him like a brother? As the older devil slipped his arm over his shoulder, Naruto returned the favor and hid a smile. Ready, go, now, do it, rush them with clones. Oh, that's what his dear brother meant. Before Naruto could even cross his fingers together, Tobio called Jin's name and black blades sprung up from their shadows. The blades stopped the devil and angel teams in their tracks while Azazel and Tobio took the lead. Suck it, losers. Sirzek swiped his hand aside and carved a furrow in the ground around the shadow blades they could slip through. Naruto and Circex ran in tandem around the blades and across the running field as they gave chase to the fallen angel duo in front of them. They gained some ground, but with Azazel and Tobio having such a lead, it was going to be difficult for them to shorten the distance. Until they heard a rumble in the sky above them. The Devil and Fallen Angel teams looked up in time to see a black cloud suddenly form directly above their section of the field. As thunder started to ring above their heads and the dark clouds started to illuminate with crashing lighting, the four men paled in fright as they realized what was coming. A giant lightning bolt crashed down and obliterated the space beneath the cloud where they stood. Everyone watching had to shield their eyes from the brightness of the attack. Oh my, looks like contestant Gesualdo has also resorted to using his Longinus, Zenith Tempest. Just as contestant Iku's Canis Lycaon controls shadows, the Angel's trump card takes the power of weather itself into their own hand. Sorry, Dulio called out as he and Michael started to make up the gap between the teams. I made sure it wouldn't kill anyone, but you might want to take a break after this is over. Focus Dulio, Michael told his partner as they passed the smoking cloud of dust the lightning bolt had kicked up. If I know them, then this wasn't nearly enough too. The Angel team had to jump back as Azazel's prosthetic arm came flying out of the smoke like a jet. The Governor General and his teammate rushed out seconds later, charred but no worse for wear as they chased after the Angels. Gonna have to do better than that, Michael. Don't tempt me. Azazel. The Angel and Fallen Angel teams started attacking each other as they raced down the track. Weapons of light flew at rapid speeds as bolts of lightning and blades of shadow lunged at each other. A horde of Naruto clones rushed out of the smoke cloud and sprinted across the field to swarm the four men. Naruto and Circex emerged from the smoke cloud and watched the clones attack their opponents. The two devils sprinted forward, still holding onto each other as they made up the distance while the clones forced the Angel and Fallen Angel teams to stop and protect themselves. As the clones starts forming Rasengans in hand, Naruto raised his arm, set, 5x. Loop. Their attacks landed and repeated several times over as the destruction they caused tore the entire field apart and shook the stadium in its entirety. Come on, Circex urged them forward past the destruction they caused. We're almost there. Damn you, Circex. You think you're so good? Azazel called out futilely as he and Tobio were tackled to the ground by clones. Naruto-kun and I are just on the same wavelength, Azazel, the Mao mocked as they took the lead. No need to be jealous. Well, I shouldn't be surprised you work so well together, considering that's the kid that deflowered your sister. Circex came to a stop and nearly tripped Naruto over as he looked back. Circex? Is that true, Naruto-kun? Did you and Rias finally? Hey, now is really not the time to. You have to tell me though, if we're going to be family you have to admit it. Gee, get off me. Tell me you'll take care of Rias, please, I have to hear it from you. Don't get handsy, you pervert. Now, while they're distracted, Azazel swiped his hand down and cut the string around his and Tobio's ankles. Get on ahead and win. Can I win by myself? Isn't the point of a three-legged race to? Go. Azazel summoned a myriad of weapons of light and sent them flying at the devils while they were distracted. Circex realized what was coming and pushed Naruto away, tearing their binding and getting pinned to ground in the process. Michael saw what they were doing and cut his binding as well to send Dulio ahead as he dealt with the clones. The crowd cheered in a fervor as Naruto took the lead, sprinting at top speeds and nearly reaching the finish line. Tobio used his shadows to pick up speed and hurry after him as Dulio brought up the back. The whiskered devil almost crossed the finish. Before he forced himself to stop, he raised his right arm and stopped Tobio from crossing the finish line as well. And when he raised his left arm, Dulio slowed to a jog and stopped by the two other men right before the goal. Everyone watched in shock and confusion as Naruto started whispering something to them. Tobio and Dulio spoke up as well as their conversation took a turn into devious smirks and nods. Naruto and Tobio clapped hands in agreement. Dulio seemed reluctant, but when Naruto pointed back to the three leaders trapped in the chaos of the fight they just had, the young angel came to an agreement. The three contestants circled their arms around their shoulders and took the last step forward in sync. Their feet crossed the finish line at the same time. That's it. The race is over. Contestant Uzumaki, Iku's, and Gesualdo joined arms and crossed the finish line together. I believe that means it's a tie. The games have ended in a tie. The three leaders looked up in confusion before their partners walked back. Dulio and Tobio gave coy smiles and Naruto smirked down at them. If none of you win, that means you all lost. Now, what was going to happen when you lose again? The three leaders sweated in panic. Devil. Azazel crossed his arms in a huff and pouted in the corner as they made their way back home. The raucous laughter of his students echoed through the train car as they continued to watch the replay of the ending ceremony of the games. The ending ceremony had dragged on for over an hour because the punishment had been thrown down, and they were forced to. Dame da ne, dame yo dame na no yo, anta ga suki da suki sugite, dor dake suyue osaki de mo, yugamanai omoide ga, baka matai. The children laughed at the recording of Azazel, Sirzex, and Michael signing a song while forced to dress in female swimwear they adorned during the water jousting. The mocking laughter and sounds of snapping photos could even be heard through the recording as the crowd reveled in the sight of the three leaders humiliating themselves. Singing, dancing, and having to recite some of his most embarrassing names for his creations back when he was in heaven. It was almost enough to get him to feel shame again. As Azazel downed another glass of hard alcohol, he felt a stern gaze on the side of his head that drew his attention. He looked over and found Rias staring at him. You regret planning this sports day yet? Regret? Meh. Maybe. Azazel shrugged. Didn't quite end up great for me and the others, but it sounds like people had fun, so can't really fault it. Well, despite how destructive it got, it was successful at lifting everyone's spirits. So I guess that was a success. Rias scowled. However, you're still a bastard. Geez. Harsh right off the bat. What did I do to deserve that? You announced to my brother and a giant crowd of people that Naruto and I had sex just so you could win a race. Ah, yes. That was pretty shitty. My bad. He tried to laugh it off, but Ria's frown didn't disappear. Her teacher groaned. Okay, what can I do to make it up to you? Do you want to announce my sexual deeds in front of a crowd next? I don't have the time nor stomach to even bother doing that. Rias retorted. Instead she looked back at her peerage, her focus landing on her whiskered lover as he clapped and chuckled at the antics they forced the leaders to suffer through. She walked up and whispered to Azazel, I want a favor. What is it? You'll be going on that trip to Kyoto soon, right? With the second-year class. Do you think you could use a student advisor to help things go a little smoother? Azazel smiled. What do you have in mind? Devil. Devil. So what does the student council do while a third of the student body is away on a field trip? Much of the same actually. Sona casually answered, standing with Naruto and Akeno around his desk as they waited for classes to start for the day. The only difference this time will be manpower on hand. More than half of us are second-year students, so they'll be out on the field trip. It'll just be Tsubaki, Ruruko, and I to handle our duties. Well, you've never complained about issues like this before, Sona. Akeno said with a coy smile. Have you gotten too comfortable with all the help now? Nonsense. The bespectacled devil heiress scoffed. I can handle a minor challenge like that. And what will the occult research club be getting up to while you juniors are gone? Sitting around musing to yourselves how boring life is without them? Most likely yes. It's gonna be quiet. Naruto leaned back in his chair, his foot catching the side of his desk to stop himself from falling back. We're seriously gonna be struggling to find ways to entertain ourselves while the others are gone. Like, more than 50% of my entertainment value comes from calling Issei stupid and shutting him up. Ah, are you gonna miss Issei? Akeno-kun. That's sweet, Sona joined in. I didn't know you cared for Hyodo-kun like that. Well, you two clearly ignored me calling him stupid, so this conversation is hopeless. Nar-yu Uzumaki-kun. Their attention turned to the side of the room to see Roswise standing by the door. The silver-haired beauty was carefully looking around, unfamiliar with the upperclassmen room and trying to find her companion. But her visit drew the attention of the other students there. Isn't she that new foreigner teacher everyone is talking about? I hear she's young, so everyone calls her Roswise-chan. My god, she's beautiful. She might even be a match for the Onisamas of our school. You think she's single? You think she's one of those naughty teachers who'll discipline her misbehaving students? Roswise finally spotted Naruto as he stood out of his chair. There you are. She stood away from the door she'd been peeking from behind and faced the blonde a little more confidently. Can you come with me? What for? Azazel-sensei wants to talk with you. About what? He didn't tell me. What did you do now? I didn't do anything. He quickly defended himself as Akano and Sona looked at him skeptically. He blubbered out some argument before waving them off. Never mind, you're not even listening. Probably not. As Akano and Sona chuckled at his expense, Roswise walked down the hall with Naruto following close behind her. As they did, students in the hall started talking about the beautiful young teacher and the problem student following after her. They started wondering what they could possibly be doing together. Someone theorized that the plucky new teacher was going to set down the law on the troublemaker student once and for all. Others suggested that Naruto was going to follow and pester the new arrival so she knew who was in charge. And a handful of students even thought that Roswise was going to train and discipline Naruto by teaching him the naughty way. Roswise's face heated up when she heard those whispers. Why are they making up crazy stories like that? Yeah, the rumor mill around here is ridiculous. Naruto offhandedly stated, ignoring the confused looks and whispers around them. You'll be saving yourself trouble by just ignoring them until they find something else to focus on. But they're suggesting that I discipline students by giving them sexual favors. Yep, and it'll only get worse if you pay it any mind. The poor Valkyrie couldn't comprehend that line of logic and tried to voice her problems with it only to go ignored as they reached the faculty room. Naruto pulled open the door and spotted Azazel. What's up? Ah, there you are. The fallen angel almost looked respectable when he acted like a teacher. Glad you're here. I wanted to talk to you about something. You know about the field trip to Kyoto coming up, right? Yeah, hard not to when most of the club is going and Rias is jealous. What about it? Well, we have a lot of students and a lot of things to focus on and we could use some help. So we thought we'd request the help from an upperclassman. He stopped talking and the three stood in silence before he shrugged. Should be obvious where I'm going with this. Where you're going is the stucco, where you can ask Kaichu or Tsubaki to help you. Naruto answered, why in the world would you think bringing me was a good choice? Because I was looking through an old folder from last year about the Kyoto trip. Azazel held it up to show schedules, grouping lists, and even had a picture from the paper where Rias and Akano were prominently shown having fun. And you're the only senior who didn't go last year. Naruto palmed his face. Why are you doing this to me? What possible reason could you have to torture me now? Hey, this is coming from a place of love and affection. Some teachers looked their way in startled confusion as Roswise gasped and Naruto's face twisted in disgust. Rias' love and affection. Rias asked me to do this. Sorry, I should have clarified that. A breath of relief rushed over the room as Naruto inhaled. Oh man, I'm so glad. Yeah, I should have prefaced this by telling you Rias asked me to do this as a favor. For what? For blurting out that you two had advanced to a sexual relationship in front of the three factions just so I could win a race. Azazel crossed his arms. You'd think the sheer humiliation I got as punishment for losing would have sufficed, but nope. Oh, that reminds me, have you seen all the videos popping up of you three? Naruto fished out his phone. The others showed me that your humiliations have gone infectious or something. Viral. Yeah, that. He stood by Roswise and showed her the videos he saved. I got them all. Michaels. Don't touch me there, this is my no-no square. Searsex. Or Tachi no, Judgment, and, of course. And this one I made when I was in heaven called, the Shining Miracle White Pulsar. Nerd. Michael, shut up. Roswise couldn't hide her giggles and Naruto looked down at Azazel mockingly as the older man sighed. Gonna be hard building a reputation back up from that. The only consolation is that all three of us made asses of ourselves, so no one side should be adversely affected. He sat up. Anyway, you're coming to Kyoto and that's that. Naruto rolled his eyes. What do I have to do exactly? If we need help with anything, we'll call for you. Otherwise, just walk around Kyoto with the groups and enjoy the sights. Azazel looked down at the folder. Maybe help take photos. Aren't there photography club members coming? I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Azazel placed the folder down. Honestly, I think Rias just wants you to enjoy your time and make up for the lost experience. He shook his head. I told her we could just go to Kyoto some other time. You can go as a romantic trip sometime in the future. But right now you should enjoy your time in school and try to make memories. Azazel shrugged. Can't hurt, can it? The blonde stood there quietly before looking between Roswise and Azazel. He nodded, fine. As long as I won't get in trouble not being in class. We'll take care of it. Azazel assured with a laugh. He then leaned back and popped his back. It's gonna be a long week. I have to head down to the underworld later. What for? Celebrating the mass printing of my book. Your porn? Don't be like that. Azazel nudged the blonde's arm. If you'd like I can see if we can print your name in the acknowledgements for inspiration. Leave me out of your sleaze and any problems it might cause. Whatever. I'm also going to see a stage play prepared for the Opie Dragon series which should be a lot of fun. Gonna see if the audience's reaction sparks any new ideas for me. I hope you mean for the kids show and not your porn books. Azazel sensei. Rosswise stepped up and nervously addressed her fellow educator. Can I ask you about the Opie Dragon show? Is it possible that you could use some new characters? Like a female warrior? Or a magician? Who you may need reference or likeness for? The Rook. Not so subtly pointed to herself. Because I'm willing to help. Oh Rosswise. As the Valkyrie ignored the shame she felt saying these things in front of Naruto, Azazel stroked his chin. I don't know. Sorry Rosswise, but we aren't introducing any new characters anytime soon. The silver-haired girl looked devastated. But if there are any new character ideas, don't hesitate to think of me. Please. I need the money. I'm barely making by with the money I make as a teacher. Between living expenses, clothes, and food I don't have anything left to live off of. Azazel and Naruto shared a look of confusion at her plight. The fallen angel nodded. Okay. Then don't pay for living expenses, clothes, and food. Oh that's easy. Rosswise threw her hands up. Then I'll just be a starving, naked, homeless bum. If I did that then I'd probably fall into drug haze or have to sell my body or… Rosswise, Naruto spoke up through her panic. You know you can stay at the hotel for free, right? What? She blinked, but when I was there the payment for the rooms was unbelievably high. Yeah, I jacked up the prices to bleed the old man a little. But the upper levels of the hotel are just for us and close companions. We live there for free. Me. Rias. Naruto. Hell, I think Kaneko and Xenovia moved in too, right? Yep, and we have something to eat every day. There's food in the kitchen or down on the first floor. And we still have our own clothes, but there are a bunch of clothes and outfits for us in all sizes in the closet. You can stay there if you want. Rosswise opened and closed her mouth several times as she tried to speak. And as she did she fell to her knees and started to blubber incoherently. The entire faculty room started to notice as Rosswise had some kind of miracle breakthrough and struggled to catch her breath. Azazel quickly slipped away, pulling Naruto along before everyone left the room for the young teacher to collect herself in. Devil, I'm going to go promote my book. Azazel chuckled like a schoolboy, wish me luck. Screw up. Make an idiot of yourself. I hope it fails. You guys, don't worry, I'll save a copy for all of you. We don't want a copy of your stupid book. The stains in your underwear tell different. Some of the students grumbled and fumed as Azazel sprouted his wings and flew away. As their teacher's form disappeared into the sky, Yuto stepped away. Well, I'm off. I'm going to see if I can get some training in with Okita-sensei while I'm here. I'm going to go pop by Matabi's, Kaneko said with Gasper and his box placed on her shoulder. It's been a while since we had a physical meeting. I want to show Mata-chan a bunch of new shows from our world and see if she likes any of them. Ravel offered to show us around the cities for fun, Issei said with a grin. I thought we could take her up on her offer. I'm in, Irina said. The last time I visited an underworld city it was attacked, so I'm looking forward for the chance to see one not on fire. I'd like to go through the city again. Akeno turned to her. King, what about you, Rias? I'll probably meet up with you all later. She smiled. My parents wish to speak with me about some business involving the family. Plus I want to visit Milika's while I'm here. Akeno turned to Naruto. And what about you? I'll stick around here a bit. The blonde shrugged. I'll catch up later. The club embarked on their separate outings, leaving Naruto and Rias at the Gremory Manor. Rias looked up at him questioningly. Why are you sticking around? I'll probably be a while with my parents. That's fine. There's something I wanted to do here anyway. What? Naruto motioned her close and Rias stepped in so he could lean into her ear. I really want to fuck you in your bedroom. Rias slapped his arm but smiled. Control yourself. Before whispering, and wait for me in my room. I'll be quick. Naruto nodded and headed around the manor while Rias headed inside. The whiskered blonde enjoyed the sights of the lavish manor as he prepared for the even better sights and experiences he was going to partake of soon. Should I just leave now? I feel like I'll be avoiding a lot of trouble if I just dipped out now before you two meet. I could hang out with Matabi, or nap with Isobu. Much better uses of my time. Oh, shut up, Naruto complained to his arm, it's not that bad. It's entirely that bad. I have to jump down to the lower levels in a hurry because you two don't even give me a warning. You just succumb to your needs, have some self-control. Don't feel like it, while I see you've gotten no less interesting. Naruto looked up from his arm and was met with the sight of a familiar young man packed together like a wall of meat. Cyroorg. The blonde greeted the larger devil as he made his way over to speak. I haven't seen you in ages. And I see I still have to crane my head back just to have a conversation with you. Ha ha ha. Nothing I can do about that. The proud, lively Bile devil chortled with delight. And since we last met I heard you, Rias, and your peerage have been doing quite a lot to fight off the foes plaguing our alliance. Man, you don't know the half of it. Naruto shook his head, it's been exhausting. I thought after the factions made peace we'd be granted a little reprieve from all the nonsense and danger. Nature hates a vacuum. Cyroorg said before looking down at his arm. Did I hear your arm talk a second ago? Oh right, I haven't actually introduced you yet. Naruto pulled his right sleeve up and pointed his forearm out and at an angle towards the Bile air. Cyroorg, this is Kurama. He's my partner and his spirit was sealed into my body since the day I was born. Kurama, this is Cyroorg Bile. He's a big-name rookie among all the young devils like Rias and Kaichu, and he's actually Rias' cousin. Really, I don't see the resemblance, and I'm sure he's thankful for that. Cyroorg joked, clapping Naruto on the back and nearly dislocating one of his vertebrae in the process. So this spirit in your body, might it have anything to do with those new creatures brimming with strength and power I've been hearing about? You heard about them? Well, one attacked you during a raiding game while the other attacked a city that Lucifer-sama had a hand in stopping. It's hard not to hear that through the grapevine. Cyroorg scratched his cheek. To be honest, I was asked by some of my sponsors and elders of the Bile clan to gather information about these guests to our world. Naruto's shoulders tensed, and I told them I was unable to gain an audience with them during my trips over. Cyroorg winked, don't worry, I'm not much for sneaking and gaining reconnaissance outside of a confrontation. If they're so desperate for information then they can try it themselves. But I know they won't risk it. Why are they suddenly so interested? Nothing sudden about it. They've been voicing their protests and intrigue to study and experiment on the new life forms since the moment they showed up in the underworld. If our enemies in the Chaos Brigade can use them as weapons so effectively, then it might be possible to replicate that level of power for themselves. He noted the pinched expression on Naruto's face. Don't worry. As long as they're protected in the Gremory territory, then they won't risk intruding and starting a political mishap. Okay, Naruto drawled with a nervous tick. But can that still work if I add another 7 of them into the territory? Cyroorg's expression showed just how surprised he was to hear that. Should I take that as a no? Hiding 8 creatures that big into a territory like this? The Bile heir scratched his chin. Well, there's plenty of space, but with so much between them then it'll be hard to keep an eye on all of them at once. The interested parties aren't going to willingly start any political strife, but if they see a chance they could take a risk. Cyroorg crossed his arms and thought deeply. I think at that point your best move would be to trust your allies to look over them. Like ask others to look out for them. Naruto said before nodding. That's what the Hentaigami offered when he took Isobu up north. I guess that could work. But you shouldn't just trust your friends. You need to also make sure you can trust their household. Naruto tilted his head as Cyroorg explained. You could trust me to watch over one of your companions, but you shouldn't trust the Bile house. Aren't you in charge of the Bile house? I should be next in line, but there are some who have a problem with the next head being a failure who can't even use the family's gift of destruction. That's why there are figures who are backing up my younger brother instead of me. Cyroorg sighed, but even if either of us were to be the head I don't think it would matter. Because even the current leader, my father, can't wrestle away the influence and power the old leader Zakram-sama still holds. Naruto's face twisted in confusion before he rubbed his head. Why, you're gonna have to go back a bit. I don't mean to make it sound like I wasn't listening, but I think you swerved into political stuff and I have a hard time keeping up with it. Haha, most people do, and you're right. It mostly boils down to politics and influence. What I mean to suggest is if you want to trust anyone with your friend's safety, make sure you put that trust in not only people but the families they belong to. I think you can trust Sona's Citri. Cyroorg smiled. You're on good terms with her and their family is very trustworthy. I can attest to that. Find people he could trust to watch over the Biju? That was obvious, but after losing them the first time he would have preferred keeping them together and watch out for them. Then again, Rias had already exercised her rights as the heiress of the Gremory to give Matabi a home. And the only reason he trusted Odin with Isobu was because the old man seemed to enjoy the novelty of a giant beast from another world instead of the military applications it had. Stop freaking out. We'll figure out what we have to do as we cross the bridge. Naruto looked down at his scared gear and scoffed. I thought I was the one who's supposed to do things dangerously half-cocked. Hey, we Biju have dealt with a lot worse for a lot longer. Spacious places to live with only the threat of being turned into weapons followed up with political strife? Feels like home already. Ha ha ha, I like his spirit. The Bael heir chuckled as Naruto shook his head. The taller devil looked around. Well, I wish you luck in your future endeavors. What will you be doing today? Well, I was waiting for Rias to. Naruto paused and then coughed. Doesn't matter. Just waiting. Well, if she's meeting with her parents, then you could be waiting for quite a bit. Their meetings could last for over an hour. An hour? Naruto groaned. Damn it. What the hell am I supposed to do for an hour? The blonde pondered before crossing his arms and tilting his head in thought. I guess I can just wait in her room and mess with her trinkets from Kyoto. She'll probably hate it, but I can get back at her with petty revenge. Upstanding boyfriend material you are, Naruto. Well, if you have an hour to kill. The taller young devil smirked and looked towards Naruto. Can I make a suggestion? Devil, Naruto was seated on the ground, legs crossed and eyes closed as he emptied himself and became the container for natural energy to fill. He couldn't remember the last time he had been able to do this himself for a battle without the help of a clone gathering the energy beforehand. He opened one of his eyes and looked across the stadium floor. And you're sure you aren't gonna attack me while I gather energy? Of course not, Cyroorg stated as he started taking off his coat to reveal a tighter, more sport-oriented shirt underneath. The Bael heir rotated his shoulders. I want to be able to spar with you at your best. I wouldn't interrupt you while you're gathering the power to give me a good fight like I asked. You might regret it. It could be too much for you. Naruto offered before closing his eyes and focusing back on the task. Hey, I welcome the challenge. Cyroorg proceeded to cross each arm over his chest and stretched them out to get limber. He repeated this process and slowly walked around before asking, does this not become a hassle in battle? I doubt your other foes were so accommodating as to allow you the time to gather this power? I've had methods made to counter that problem. If I create a clone and they gather the energy, then when they disappear the energy returns to me. So you face the enemy first, gain a feel for their aptitude and abilities, and then acquire the power your clone built up in the meantime. That's incredibly useful and innovative. Thanks. Naruto chuckled at the praise he got from the young devil who was making such a big name for himself. Hey, is it alright to use the Gremory Stadium like this? Well, I'm their nephew and you're the future son-in-law. Naruto couldn't help but blush at how casually and frank people said that about him now. I'm sure it'll be okay. This might be one of those situations where it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. We didn't ask anyone if we can do this, did we? No, the taller man smiled and put one foot back as he got into a stance, but I'm so excited for a match that I don't mind the consequences. Well, Naruto opened his eyes and revealed the bar pupils he was now sporting. I'll try not to disappoint. I doubt you could. Now that Naruto was in sage mode, his senses and perception were much stronger. And with it he could see Cyroorg on a completely different level than before. The energy and spirit he let out. It was no wonder he was making such a name for himself. The sheer vigor and spirit coming off this kid. I don't even think he's doing it consciously. With how wild and undisciplined the energy coming off him was, despite how well trained and skilled he appeared, then that much was clear. Naruto couldn't sense the slight change in his natural energy that he realized came from a devil's demonic power. but was instead more akin to chakra with how much it was formed from honing his body and mind to their peak forms. Naruto took a deep breath and lowered his stance, raising his fists up as he prepared for their spar. Cyroorg's smile settled confidently as he kept a close eye on Naruto's every movement. In return, Naruto focused on Cyroorg's energy and felt every intent and subtle move he made. He slid one foot forward. He responded by doing the same. One of them swallowed in anticipation. The other felt a drop of sweat run down their chin. They both waited for the other to make the first move, until they both dove forward and rushed each other. They covered the distance between them in an instant, reeling their fists back before throwing them forward. Their punches landed against each other and caused a shockwave and quake through the Colosseum's floor. The two young devils forced themselves forward, struggling for an advantage against the other as their fists pressed harder against one another. They struggled more and more, until Cyroorg gained supremacy and knocked Naruto and his fist back. The whiskered sage flew backwards and spun through the air before landing. He slid to a stop and looked back up. Cyroorg had dashed in again, already in front of the whiskered pawn, as his huge fist came in with a hook. Despite his large frame, he was unbelievably quick, his speed and reflexes honed through years of intense training and battle. For anyone stuck with the misfortune of fighting him, this would have looked like a blur followed by the sweet relief of black. But for Naruto, he was already ducking under the fist as he sensed its path just over his head. And as he ducked, he threw a jab that buried itself into Cyroorg's stomach. Even with his enhanced strength, it was like punching a rock, but Naruto pushed deeper and knocked the larger man away. Cyroorg slid a few feet back before digging his heels in and stopping his retreat. The tall brunette tried to stand back up but paused, coughing and tasting some blood in his mouth when he did. He touched his stomach and felt how it reacted before he noticed the bruise on his fist from where their punches connect. He smiled. "So that's the secret, huh? Your strength and power have increased greatly with the help of this technique, but its real strength comes in the form of you being able to dodge my attacks and attack internally, isn't it?" Naruto grinned and raised his fist. His sacred gear formed over his arm as he whispered, "Set." Cyroorg smirked and raised his fist, bouncing on his feet as he prepared for the next round. The large devil dashed forward, turning into a blur as he rushed at Naruto with a straight jab. The whiskered ninja weaved aside and dodged the staggering punch entirely. The Bile air twisted around, changing his direction in an instant while also throwing a kick at Naruto that would destroy anything in its path. The blonde leapt over his kick, vaulting over the attack and throwing a back fist that missed Cyroorg's cheek by a few inches, but still caused a ripple to form through the king's cheek and knocked his head back violently. Naruto landed and dashed into his guard, landing 3 punches into his ribs and chest before uppercutting the taller man's chin. 5x. Loop. Cyroorg stumbled as the attacks he suffered repeated and pelted his body enough without him being able to even defend himself. Naruto watched the attacks he landed with his frog kata batter and strike the large man's body. After a few repeated strikes had landed, the attacks had ended with Cyroorg standing perfectly still. He spat some blood but was still standing tall. If he landed that kind of combination against a normal opponent, they would have been grounded immediately. "You're tough." Naruto spoke up, smirking as Cyroorg grinned and squared up again. He tensed his arm again, set. Cyroorg dashed at him again, throwing a blindingly fast straight jab that Naruto dodged by a hair's breadth. As it sailed just by his head, Naruto threw a punch towards his ribs. He felt the change. His eyes widened as Cyroorg's punch switched directions, changing from a straight jab to a wide clothesline with Naruto's head in its path. Cyroorg had realized Naruto would attack him after dodging and was now countering him in the middle of his own attack. He was figuring out ways to combat Sage modes so quickly. Naruto pulled back his fist, still sending a weaker strike through Cyroorg's chest with natural energy as he tried to avoid the elbow coming his way. Even with ducking and turning his head, he felt the king's strike scrape against his temple and cut through it. The large Bile man reeled from the blow he felt through his chest as Naruto flipped back and out of his range. The blonde stood back up and felt blood dripping down the side of his face from where the elbow strike cut through it. The two young men looked at each other, their gazes lingering long and hard on the other before they both smirked. 2x. Naruto, I already said it anyway. Had to close it. Do it, Kurama. Loop. Cyraorg felt the strike through his chest again as the cut along the side of Naruto's face grew deeper and bloodier. The two young men weathered their injuries and felt their excitement build up with the tension. Naruto made the next move, swirling his hands together at incredible speeds to form a Rasengan. The moment it formed, he pumped it full of demonic power and converted it to wind. As he sensed Cyraorg move, he immediately threw out his hand. Wind Demon's Rasengan. His attack sailed through the air and exploded against Cyraorg, enveloping him in a violent vortex that swallowed him whole. Good. Glad to see you're smart enough to change up the tactics. I don't think he can attack from a distance, so I have the advantage there. Naruto started creating another Rasengan while focusing his demonic power in another. I want to get back up close with him, but I might need to test the waters first. Good move. As long as he can't attack at long range, then you. The spirit and power at the center of the vortex suddenly swelled and dispelled it entirely. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw Cyraorg's deep horse stance and chambered fist. The brunette devil smirked and moved to throw a fist. Naruto immediately abandoned his attack and tried to jump away. Cyraorg punched forward and the space in front of his fist warped. The energy that swelled around him rushed ahead along with the sheer air pressure he forced forward. It created a path of power Naruto jumped aside to avoid as it flew by him. Even as he dodged, the punch still nearly knocked him off his feet as his senses tried to comprehend the attack of natural energy, spirit power, and whatever else Cyraorg added to. It was in that moment of trying to collect himself that Cyraorg made his move. He dashed up to Naruto when the blonde couldn't dodge and struck him across the face. Naruto went flying across the Colosseum stage, blood pooling in his mouth before he crashed against the other side. Cyraorg smiled as he lowered his fist. That's the first solid hit I've landed on you this whole time. Let's make it the only one, Naruto. I know your head is reeling, but we need you. Kurama, Naruto whispered, we're gonna try using it. Seriously? Naruto spat some blood aside. Yep. Are you sure now is the best time to try it? I know you've been practicing with it a lot, but doesn't all your training usually end with violent eruptions? Well, we're taking it out for a run. Naruto rolled up his sleeve and lowered his hand to the side. Cyraorg watched him quizzically as the blonde devil closed his eyes and focused. He summoned his demonic power to his hand and gave form to the raw energy, making it solid and hard like rock. And after that he focused on the natural energy around his body and what traveled through the space around him. All of it, connected to the earth and rock he created, and what reached out to the stone around him too. Cyraorg felt a strange anticipation as he watched Naruto focus and gather something together. It looked like a stone or just gravel formed in his hand as he stood there. And nothing else seemed to happen at first until he noticed. The entire Colosseum was straining. No, it was pulling towards a single point. Naruto rushed forward. Cyraorg wrestled with his instinct to evade and his battle spirit to see just what the whiskered ninja had to offer. In that moment Naruto slipped in towards his side and reeled his fist back. Cyraorg tensed his body and guarded his side. Naruto's fist dug into his arm and impacted. The ground splintered, rose, fell, and quaked behind his swing. And the force of his punch blasted Cyraorg off his feet and caused the bile air to violently spit up blood. His back slammed against a higher section of the Colosseum and he dropped down to the ground before coughing up blood. His arm was twitching from the damage and his ribs felt sore. That punch was magnitudes stronger than the ones he had taken before. Huh? Naruto slammed his fist into the ground and caused a massive ripple through the rock that headed towards Cyraorg. As he saw the wave of stone come his way, Cyraorg reeled back and punched towards the ground, blowing up the floor of the Colosseum and wrecking the wave as rocks flew through the air. Only to suddenly stop. Cyraorg looked up in shock before he saw Naruto's hand raised in the air, dropping down and making the debris rain down with it. Cyraorg jumped aside, avoiding the rocks that pelted to ground as they started to follow him. Naruto aimed towards his foe, willing the rock to follow his command and try to overwhelm the young king. The longer he tried to control a nature with natural energy, the harder it was to maintain. And even now he was feeling the same sense of control slip away. He had to focus. Cyraorg punched towards Naruto, creating another burst of energy that Naruto was forced to dodge or take straight to the face. As Naruto landed, he looked up to see Cyraorg following after his punch and charging at Naruto with the intent to beat him down. The blonde narrowed his eyes and decided to try again. He raised his left hand and conjured lightning. The ground erupted around him as a violent storm of lightning bolts shot in every direction and covered the Colosseum. The smoke and dust settled to reveal both men after the effect of the explosion. The ground was splintered and cratered all around them. Naruto had lost control of his attack with the earth element in one hand broken away while the lightning he tired in the other charred his hand. In just a few feet away, Cyraorg guarded himself. Burn marks on his forearms and legs after the lightning suddenly appeared in front of him. Yep, Naruto hissed in pain and tried to close his left hand. Still can't do two at once. If that's what it's like without control, I can't wait to see what it looks like when you do. Cyraorg said as he lowered his arms and smiled through his injuries. That technique could turn the tables in the fight. It's supposed to. Naruto smiled as he raised his sacred gear. It's supposed to cover the slack after I've used my balance breaker. You have another ace? Interesting. Cyraorg smirked. A glow appearing on his wrists and ankles. Does that mean we don't need to hold back anymore? If you still want to, then I'm more than willing to. Hey! Naruto and Cyraorg flinched as they looked aside and saw Rias looking at them expectantly while some servants of the Gremory family followed behind her. I left the trench and the cracks against the wall. Cyraorg said, the rest was him. You rat bastard. Devil, what is wrong with you two? Rias chastised her boyfriend and cousin as the two men were being healed and all the damages to the Colosseum was being fixed. I mean, I'm gone for, what, 5 seconds? And you two start beating the hell out of each other. Naruto coughed. Actually, I didn't run into Cyraorg until about 5 minutes after you left, and even then. Young man, Rias cut him off, a small glower on her face and with a tone a parent might have as they discipline their child. If you're trying to save face using semantics, then I'd stop now while you're still ahead. He closed his mouth and nodded. You can blame me for all of this, Rias. Cyraorg tried to disarm his cousin's ire, but the look on her face told him it wouldn't be easy. I was the one that suggested a spar and Naruto Uzumaki was simply accommodating me. Firstly, Cyraorg, you need to look up the difference between a spar and a natural disaster. Her point was proven as a lump of debris slipped out and crashed by a servant, causing them to yell in fear. And second, why did you even come here? Well, I was on my way by, so I thought I'd come and pay your parents my respects. While also reminding them that the Bael apple harvest is going strong and that they should get their orders in while supplies last. He chuckled and Rias rolled her eyes at her cousin's nonchalantness. And after that I was going to the Sea Tree territory to visit mother. Even though Cyraorg said it with a smile, his voice didn't carry the same exuberance or power it usually had. And Ria's expression grew a little less firm when she heard that. She still shook her head. That should be all the more reason not to muck up your wardrobe and visit her in your best condition. Well, I can't say you're wrong there. Can you give Miss Lasama my best wishes? Yes. I think she'll like that. Their healing session ended and Cyraorg patted his arms before making his way out. I'm off then. Rias, it was good to see you and I apologize for the mess. Naruto Uzumaki, thank you again for the spar. Maybe next time we can have a proper match. Naruto stood up and watched the larger man walk away before he looked at Rias. What was that about his mother? I'll tell you later. She turned and motioned him to follow. Come on, Azazel and Oni-sama sent us an urgent message that he needs everyone together for something. Right now? Yes, right now. But, Naruto looked expectantly back. I thought we were going back to your room for some fun? Looks like you had enough of a workout having fun with Cyraorg. She callously answered, come on. I just know it's deflating. Naruto summoned his sacred gear and started tapping his fingers rapidly against the glass. Don't do that. Devil, greeting everyone. Are you ready for a day of adventure and awesomeness? Yeah. Well, we're about to start the show, get ready. Wow, Irina-san is really good at getting the crowd excited. Rosweiss noted as the crowd of children they sat with celebrated as the angel stood on stage and riled them up. You'd think she has experience hosting shows like this. She has experience, but more with being involved in the crowd than hosting. When I told her there was going to be an Opie Dragon show today, she was already imagining what seeing it would be like. Azazel answered, sitting with the group not involved in the show as they watched everyone get excited for what came next. When I offered her the chance to host, she nearly jumped out of her skin. Glad to see she was ready for it. Not without some effort. Zenobia said with a chuckle. The original host outfit was too tight on her and ripped. She screamed out in shock when the chest burst open and her breasts were bouncing around for everyone to see. She nearly deafened Kaneko in surprise. And caused Issei to spurt more blood than I've ever seen. Akeno remarked, smirking at the thought, rather jealous of that fact. Akeno-san, don't say that. Asia complained to the older girl who just laughed and waved her worry off. The nun sat back down and fretted silently. I didn't get to heal Issei-san enough before we had to leave the dressing room, so I hope he's okay. Don't worry Asia-kun. Issei-kun is fine. The young group and Azazel looked over as Searsex joined them by sitting next to his fellow leader. As showtime grew closer he realized he couldn't disappoint the children and livened up again. You don't need to worry about him. It's kinda surprising how much Issei-senpai like this. Gasper said through his bag as he looked around the crowd. It's quite wholesome how much he enjoys entertaining the kids and being a hero for the underworld. Yeah, and all the breasts and adoring older ladies probably isn't a downside either. No, Issei has the love and adoration of children everywhere. Zenobia corrected, it's Kiba that gets the attention of all the busty, interested older ladies. Everyone, are you ready? Irina announced to a wave of uproarious cheers. If you want him to show up then you gotta call his name. Ready? And OPPPIEDRAGOONNNNNN. He. A figure in red armor popped out of the center of the stage, spun through the air, and landed in a crouch in front of everyone. He snapped back up to his feet and threw out his arms. Opie. Why, man. I was just on my way through the skies when I thought I saw a big theater filled with all the special boys and girls of the underworld. And what do you know, you're here. Guess I got lucky spotting you all from the clouds, huh? Yeah, hey, can I ask you kids for some help? The armored hero asked while panning around the entire theater to the excitable children. I got a call from the princess saying the kingdom had spotted some of our enemies lurking around. Now I might be tough, but if it's who I expect sneaking around then I might need some assistance. Say, he rubbed his chin and looked out over the crowd. Can I trust you all to call out if you see anyone? Yup. You got it, Opie Dragon. Irina excitedly piped up while bouncing on her feet. We'll definitely help you fight the bad guys. Issei paused and nodded. Thank you, Ms. Narrator. But I think we can trust the kids to help here, right? Irina blinked before realizing what they were doing and blushing. Alright, sorry. The kids will definitely help. Opie Dragon, up there, huh? Issei looked up and spotted a figure hanging upside down from the ceiling. The robed blonde man with bar eyes looked down at him from above as the armored man made an exaggerated pose. Ah. You're here already, lazy sage? His feet slipped from the ceiling and the blonde dropped through the air without worry, twisting in the fall and landing upright on his feet. The whiskered sage sighed. Hey Opie, I guess we're fighting. Again, yay. Oh my gosh, the lazy sage just suddenly showed up. What will one of Opie Dragon's fiercest foes be planning today? As the crowd started to fret and decry the lethargic sage's arrival, Asia looked around. I guess the villains aren't appreciated as much as the heroes, are they? Kiba and Naruto aren't well liked with this crowd. Zenobia noted, on the bright side I think he's really nailing the performance. Deadpan. Bored? Dreading having to be here. Yep, we nailed him good. Azazel smirked and pumped his fist in celebration. Evil fiend. Issei exclaimed, making some wild poses and overselling the whole thing as he pointed at the whiskered blonde. What terrible plot have you concocted now, huh? Pretty much most of the same. On the other end of the scale, Naruto delivered his lines only loud enough for the people to hear but with no passion or energy. It was clear from his expression that he lamented coming at Azazel's request and getting strung along into the play. Besides, it ain't even my plan. It's not, of course not. Opie Dragon, you think LS would be the one behind this attack? Please. A spotlight landed on a man standing on a pillar and everyone spotted the caped figure. Yuto stood with a malicious grin, black armor adorned and a twisted sword in his grip as he cackled. Who else do you think would plan your destruction but me? Oh no, it's Darkness Knight Fang, Opie Dragon's archenemy and Lazy Sage's partner in crime. What could he possibly be doing here? I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm still after the power and resources of the kingdom. And now I have the best chance of getting what I want. Behold, Opie Dragon. Yuto waved his sword over and another spotlight pointed to the side of the stage where a line of rope was being pulled up from the ceiling. Look who I happened to run into along the way. Oh no. Rias cried out, dressed as a princess and her voice somewhere between convincing and mortified about having to play the part. Help me, Opie Dragon. I have been ensnared in their trap. Oh no. They've captured the breast princess. Princess. The Opie Dragon cried in anguish. You monsters. How could you catch her? She walks around without a guard detail. The lazy sage said, seriously, she should be covered 24/7 with how many enemies you lot have. And fortunately for us, we caught her during one of those slip-ups. Now she is our hostage. The Darkness Knight Fang cackled, hamming it up before pointing his sword up to their bound princess. What do you think of that, hero? Curse you too. How dare you tie her up and suspend her like that? I'll never forgive you. Opie Dragon shuddered and seethed with anger. Especially because you tied her up in a way that pushes up her breasts and gives her a ridiculous amount of cleavage even in that gown. Gah. It's so hot that I'm mad I didn't think of it before. I guess even in high-risk scenarios like this, Opie Dragon only has one thing on his mind. Rias blushed and pouted as the kids started to laugh. Okay, there's no way that was in the script. Enough of your relentless libido, Opie Dragon. Darkness turned his blade on the warrior. Surrender and accept your fate. He jumped off the tallest pillar and fell towards Opie Dragon with his sword raised up. The hero raised his arms and blocked as the prop hit against his fake armor and the lights flickered in response. The crowd gasped and cheered as Opie Dragon swung his arms and knocked Darkness through the air, wires pulling on his back to sell it even better. While Opie Dragon's arms were raised, Lazy Sage rushed in and attacked from his side. The armored hero blocked his attack and forced him back, throwing punches and kicks at his blonde nemesis as he dodged them all. Darkness dropped back down, bringing his sword between the two fighters and forcing them apart. When Opie Dragon had put some distance between them, the swordsman cackled and thrusted his sword forward. Pyrotechnics and explosions went off across the stage towards the hero and enveloped him completely. He let out a long, agonizing scream before falling to a knee. Oh no, Opie Dragon's been hit hard. What can he hope to do now? I have to say the stunts and effects are surprisingly good, Akeno said as her friends nodded, watching Issei and the others perform their fight choreography so well to the worried and adoring crowd. Ah! Opie cried out in pain, suffering a relentless barrage from his foes before dropping to his knee again. When he did, he clutched his chest. It's too much. These guys are just too strong to defeat by myself. I need help. Opie turned to the crowd. Kids, I need your assistance. Help me gather power. Bouncy bouncy boobies. Bouncy bouncy boobies. Hey, no fair calling on the audience. Yes. Yes. I can feel the power surge back into me. Opie Dragon stood back up, his fatigue and pain subsiding as the cheers of the children empowered him. He chambered his hands to his side. Take this, evildoers. Opie fire. And with a throw of his hands, fire lit up across the stage and rose everywhere. Darkness Knight Fang and Lazy Sage acted as if they were blown off their feet, and even Breast Princess curled up in the air as a stream of fire rose up close to her body. Yes. He cheered as his enemies picked themselves up. Now with the added power of the children calling out for boobs, I'm unstoppable. Pretty good, Opie Dragon. But not good enough, Darkness announced and leveled his sword as Lazy Sage stood by his side. Even with your booby power up, it's not nearly enough to stop us in battle. Then how about some assistance? Oh, is that who I think it is? The wandering ally, the nebulous hero. The little lady who can always help the Opie Dragon out of a bind. Everyone give it up for. The spotlights turned to one side of the stage to reveal Kaneko in a black fighter outfit and a domino mask, her ears and tail freely out on her body. She nodded and gave a peace sign, Nian. Hellcat-chan. Asia giggled and cooed. Ah, Kaneko-chan looks so cute in her Hellcat-chan outfit. And she has so many fans who love her. Why yeah, Roswise sweated. However, isn't there a rather big discrepancy between the show's regular fans and hers? Because they're Hellcat-chan. We love you. So sexy. A wave of older men and women in Hellcat-chan merchandise cheered for their little mascot while waving glow sticks around as well. Show us what you can do. Can't fault them for loving what they love. As the play started to ramp up with all the players doing their part, Rias watched from above with a tired sigh. She hated being tied up and forced to play the captured damsel while the others got to fight and play with fireworks for the crowd. She was going to have a serious word with Azazel and Circex for forcing her into this position without even giving her anything to do. And while this all happened, Rias failed to notice that the last pyrotechnic that flared up at her side had burnt and flayed the edges of the rope suspending her from the stage. The burn went deeper and the rope became weaker until it snapped, and Rias plummeted through the air still bound by the rope around her body. Everyone gasped, "Oh no, Rias." The Gremory heiress let out a small gasp of shock as she fell before her descent was suddenly stopped. Cradled in a princess carry, they landed on the stage and Rias was carefully put back on her feet. Naruto whispered, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just a little scare." Rias sighed in relief. This damn rope got burnt. Yuto, Issei, and Kaneko came running over as well to check on their king. As their worries were eased with the fact she was okay, they all calmed down and took a breath. And realized they were still in front of a stunned audience silently watching what they were doing in confusion. Naruto gulped as he realized they'd accidentally derailed the show. In a panic he kicked Issei in the stomach, sending the armored devil sliding across the stage before he grabbed Rias and carried her under his arm. "You let your guard down." "Why yes." Yuto quickly recovered and started to ad-lib, "And now we're off. Just try to catch us, Opie Dragon." As the villains ran off with Breast Princess and Hellcat Chan helped Opie Dragon up, Irina stammered, How will Opie Dragon save the princess from evil's grasp?" "We'll be taking a short intermission before the show resumes." As the stage was vacated and the members of the peerage ran to check up on their friends, Circex and Azazel groaned, "So that was a big mistake. We should really be double-checking the effects and props. And we can't keep tricking the kids to do it without proper practice time." Azazel whined at that but Circex frowned. "They're not your playthings to have fun with whenever you're bored." "Mommy, why did Lazy Sage save the princess like that? Isn't he a bad guy?" "Well, I don't think that was part of the show, sweetie." "Oh, but he looked so much different when he saved her from the fall." "I think he didn't want her to get hurt." "That's weird. Is the Lazy Sage not actually a bad guy?" Circex noticed the confusion some of the kids were having at the hiccup in the show. He scratched his cheek. "Well, I think we'll need to rewrite the play a little to fix things up. We don't want the characters to be confusing too, Azazel?" The fallen angel's eyes were wide as he stared ahead blankly. His brain was running a mile a minute as he realized something and the world opened up around him. The Governor General smirked and turned to the Mao. "Light bulb. Devil, today was too long." Rias mumbled as she plopped into the bed and moaned into her pillow, "I'm so glad it's over." "I mean, I don't see what you have to complain about. You weren't the one playing the dumb villain getting his ass kicked by Issei." "No, I was just playing the dumb character getting caught and tied up for everyone to see. So much better." Naruto shrugged and dropped down on the bed beside her. He stretched out and fell into the pillow with a yawn. "Well, at least it's over now." "Yeah." Rias lay prone for a moment before twisting around and looking at her boyfriend, "But I did appreciate you coming in to help me when I fell." She leaned over to hold onto his chest before giving him a loving kiss. "Thank you." "My pleasure," he whispered back before leaning in and kissing her again. They kissed again. And again. And then kissed deeper and with more heat and love. Rias pulled herself over the bed, lying on his chest and slipping her hands into his hair as their tongues started to fight against each other. Her breasts squished against his chest as Naruto's hands found their way to her back and waist. They pulled back, their lips glistening from their saliva with a hint of red on their faces. "I know you hate that character." Naruto's hand reached down and squeezed her ass, "but you looked so fucking hot in that gown. My heart may have fluttered when you caught me from the fall." Rias whispered in a heated voice as she ran a finger down his cheek. "You know, we still didn't get that experience in your bedroom. Maybe we could make up for lost time? But we're not in the designated room, if we did it here. I don't think I can move right now." Naruto alluded, cupping one of Rias' cheeks and squeezing tightly as the heiress shuddered through her whole body. "What about you?" Rias panted, her eyes heated and breath heavy before she sat up and started pulling off her nightgown, real quick. "Devil." It's going to be boring with you and everyone gone on the trip soon. I'm sure you and the others can cope while we're away." Zenobia and Kaneko walked down the hall in their PJs, the knight, in a tank top and shorts while the rook opted for a baggy t-shirt. As the duo walked down the hall, Kaneko frowned. All Bucko and Akano Sanapi did when they came back was talk on about it. "It sucks to think we're about to suffer through the second round of it all so soon. Well, I'll try not to be too much of a bother, but I am quite excited." The blue-haired swordswoman smiled with anticipation. "My first trip to Japan's ancient capital. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of new things with everyone. And I'm looking forward for when it's my turn next year." Kaneko replied, "I'm going to get so much retribution when it's my time to be the insufferable asshole coming back from vacation." Fair enough. But you know I'm fortunate because my trip will have something neither yours nor Rias Bucko had." Kaneko looked up at Zenobia as the knight smiled. "I'll have Naruto all to myself for a few days." HMPH. Kaneko harumphed and turned her nose up. "If you're trying to make me worry, then you should keep trying. Thing is, Zenobia senpai, is that you're so awkward and clumsy with your sex appeal that you probably won't even be able to tempt senpai properly." "You think?" Zenobia asked, genuine interest in her voice as she scratched her head. "You might be right. Oh, but I could try sleeping with him at night. I'm sure cuddling up together would bring us closer." "But you don't cuddle," Kaneko corrected. "You buck and knock all of us off when you sleep." "Well, I guess I can get some practice in while we're away." "You do that," Kaneko said. "I'm gonna get in as much snuggling and hugs as I can while we sleep." They reached the door and she opened it. "That'll show." "Ah." Kaneko and Zenobia froze in shock and nearly slammed the door shut when they heard the scream. They stopped just short of closing the door and looked through the slit it left to see. "Ah, yes," Rias cried out. The redhead seated in Naruto's lap and bouncing up and down on his cock as they embraced in the middle of the bed. Their bodies were sweaty and red, but neither seemed ready to stop at all. Rias was straddling his waist, dropping her waist and pussy on his dick over and over as she panted. "Feels so good." "You really like this, don't you?" Naruto asked as he watched his beloved girlfriend bounce on top of him. "Every chance you get you like to ride on top." Because I like to lead the pace." Rias panted, moaning and gasping as she continued to pierce herself on his ride. They were so enamored by their pleasure that they didn't notice Zenobia and Kaneko's gazes through the door. "Are you complaining?" "Not at all," Naruto replied, leaning down and taking one of the bouncing breasts in front of his face into his mouth and sucking. The act caused Rias to stop and cry out as her back arched. Kaneko stood in shock as she watched them have sex. Seeing them do it should have been embarrassing, and it was enough that she wanted to shut the door and run away to forget what she saw. But despite herself she continued to watch even though she felt a mix of sadness and intrigue as she did. "But you know," Naruto murmured around her nipple as Rias panted and looked down, "sometimes it's fun to switch things up." "What?" Rias let out a little squeal as Naruto lifted her waist and threw himself forward while pinning Rias to the bed at the same time. As she gasped and tried to recollect herself after that sudden movement, Naruto sat back up in between her legs and pulled back before thrusting forward. "Ah." Again, Zenobia muttered in shock as they watched Naruto's hips buck back and forth wildly as Rias cried out in blissful euphoria. The bed beneath them squeaked and rocked and they got a better view of his cock slipping into her folds before dragging its way out. The former church warrior blushed. "It's so. And Naruto. Too fast. I can't." Naruto leaned down and took Rias' lips in a kiss, the Gremory heiress moaning into his mouth as he sped up his humping. The speed of their hips clapping echoed through the room alongside their moaning. It sped up faster and faster as they approached their release. Rias' arms wrapped around his back as her legs locked around his waist, urging him to finish inside, and with a few more forceful thrusts he slammed down once more and came inside. Her walls tightened and squeezed his cock as it shot his load deep into her cunt. Naruto and Rias' lips separated, both teens hungrily gasping for air and laying in a sweet, sweaty embrace as they reveled in the euphoria of their release. Naruto laid down atop Rias and she gladly hugged him close. Zenobia and Kaneko watched the scene of their post-love making in silence. Their faces red, breathing heavy, and a wetness down below from watching the intense scene unfold without their knowledge. Naruto finally sat up, drawing his cock out of Ria's pussy and leaving a small drop of cum to run off the edge as he fell aside. Rias panted and rolled over, reaching off the side of the bed for her pajamas as she tried to get dressed again. "Hey." Kaneko was drawn out of her haze and looked up at Zenobia as the usually unflappable knight nervously asked, "Should we still go inside?" After seeing what they just did, Kaneko tried to answer but no words. They flinched and looked back inside to see Naruto had crawled in by Ria's back and wrapped his arms around her chest. He was gently kissing her neck as the redhead panicked. What are you doing?" "Just loving you is all," he said while leaning in and gently biting her ear. "Hey," Rias shuddered, "stop that. We need to show a little restraint." "Why? Is it so bad if we went again?" "Yes." Rias defied, "because we need to sleep properly. I love when we do it together but we shouldn't do it so much." "But I'm leaving for Kyoto soon," he whispered, breathing heavily along her neck before kissing and nibbling it to excite her, "and I'll be gone for days." His hand opened and took one of her breasts, gently squeezing and rubbing it as he pinched the nipple, "which means we won't be able to do it until I get back." His other hand slowly ran along her stomach before reaching between her legs, a finger slipping into her wet folds and even playing with the load he had released minutes ago as she moaned, "But we could make up for the time we'll lose then if we started now." Aye. Rias groaned as her body writhed. "You?" she hissed before looking back into his eyes and nodding. "Okay." He smiled and pulled his fingers out, grabbing her leg and lifting it up to expose her pussy to the air. And in that position he aligned his cock with her cunt from behind and slipped in, slower. "I'm still reeling from the last one. I'll make sure we take our time." As he held her leg up from the knee he started slowly grinding his cock into her, his girlfriend gasping as he started to ramp it up. Kaneko couldn't take any more. She turned and ran back down the hall before things could get any worse. But Zenobia was too absorbed. She fell to her knees and watched through the slit of the door as the two lovers started their second round of fucking. The act of peeping like this was disgusting and reprehensible, yet Zenobia didn't care. Not even as she slipped her fingers into her shorts and started to pleasure herself at the sight. Kaneko ran back to her room and slammed the door, leaning back against it as she panted and sobbed. Her face was red and her eyes were watering. She knew they were having sex and she had been glad to know their relationship had taken its natural next step. But she hadn't been ready to see it. She wasn't prepared to face the fact that she still couldn't entice or allure the man she loved like that. Like that. Rough, fast, hard, soft, loving, gentle. All the things they were and she wanted it too. She slid to the ground and gasped as her face started to heat up. When she closed her eyes she could still remember the sounds she heard when they fucked. Her imagination started running wild and she dreamily wished that she had been in Ria's position instead. Reaching under her shirt and slipping a finger in, Kaneko started to work herself over, senpai. "Devil, mother, you don't have to keep seeing me off to sleep like this. I know how busy you are." "Oh, but I'm not too busy to say good night to my little girl." "I am not little anymore," the obstinate young lady of the house replied as she sat up. "I can go to bed by myself." "Oh, but I like to see you off." "Mother, fine, I won't impose." The beautiful blonde woman stood up, her kimono falling into place over her body as she made her way over to the sliding door. She walked through and grinned back cheekily at her daughter. "You sure you don't want me to read you a bedtime story?" "Mother, night." She giggled at her daughter's indignant response and closed the slider behind her. With a hearty chuckle she gently walked along the wooden halls of her Japanese castle, her socks causing the floor to gently creak with each step. It was remarkable how such subtle, tiny sounds rung so pleasantly in the ears atop her head. She stopped and looked up at the moon, admiring how it illuminated the sky and made the inky darkness into a tinge of dark blue. Despite how frequently she had seen this sight she stopped and took it in silence once again. Memories of ages past returned to her and she thought back to the first person that taught her to appreciate the little things in life. The things that stayed the same and the things that had to naturally change. Her daughter was growing and didn't need to be babied anymore. A fact that inherently left her with a longing for the days when her baby girl would excitedly run up and cling to her leg wanting her attention. Just a few more years of clinging and loving won't be so bad. But as she had to remember, some things changed while some always stayed the same. She sighed and started walking back down the hallway. The creaking of her feet the only sound to accompany the empty night air. Followed by the sudden creak of another set of feet behind her. She immediately turned, summoned fire to her hand, and prepared to deal with their intruder. If they thought they could invade her home without a fight, then they stopped. She froze. She looked at the figure standing across from her in the night. As tears filled her eyes. And in that instant, Yasaka-sama. Two attendants came running around the corner. We believe the castle has been infiltrated. We need to get you to Yasaka-sama? The two guards looked around desperately, searching the empty hallway for any sight of their master. But she was already gone. Devil.